So welcome back guys to another video, and today I thought I would talk about my introduction to emulation. Now I've talked about in the past why I prefer emulating retro games, why I'm no longer a collector, why I like that platform, but I've never talked about my introduction, like how I found out about emulation. I thought that'd be a really fun video to touch base on. Now, first off, we have to go back to the year 2001. Okay, we had just survived the Y2K scare. Movies were coming out on discs called DVDs, and a well-known computer company was diving into the home console market known as the Microsoft Xbox. Also, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was in this technology class that, we would do all sorts of things like write code for websites. That's where I got my feet wet on video editing, and I did a little bit of flight simulation. It was a really awesome class, and every Friday would be like our chill day. We would watch a movie, maybe surf the internet, watch Newgrounds, and that's what I thought one of my friends that was in the corner of the classroom was doing, because he had all of his friends gathered around him. I thought they were watching Newgrounds, and upon closer examination, they were playing Super Mario Bros. 3 on the computer, and that was just like a complete weird moment. I was just watching them play it on the keyboard, and I'm like, they're playing Super Mario Brothers. That's so weird. So I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey, how are you doing that? And he was telling me about, oh, this is an emulator, I'm playing ROMs, and I was like, man, this is completely foreign. I don't know what you're talking about. But coincidentally, my parents had just gotten a family computer. So I went home, and I started downloading the ROMs and the emulators, and I was using Kazaa and LimeWire, which was not a good idea because I infested my family's computer with viruses. I got in a lot of trouble. Next day, I was kind of telling him what was happening, and he was like, I'll give you some ROMs, okay? Just keep the emulators, I'll give you some ROMs. And he gave me a floppy disk. A freaking floppy disk full of Super Nintendo games. A lot of games that I hadn't had in my collection yet, or I've been wanting to play, like Super Metroid and Yoshi's Island, stuff like that. And one of the games that was on it was Lord of the Rings, which I had just seen that movie, and I was completely floored that there was even a Super Nintendo game based off of it. And I have to say, it's not the best game. It's really not a good game, but that just captivated me so much that I was like, you know what? I can play old games in other ways than playing on the console. Now, one of the only things I didn't like about emulation at the time was the fact that I had to use the keyboard. Turn-based RPGs were okay, like playing Lord of the Rings on the keyboard was cool, but fighting games and platformers, like, out of the question. It was just really, really not cool. And I think that's where a lot of people that grew up during that time with emulation, I think that's where a lot of them just stopped. They just stopped with emulation. They're like, I'll stick to the original hardware, because that's how I was at the time. But then 12 years later, after learning about emulation, completely abandoning it and just sticking to original hardware, it wasn't until 2013 when Capcom released a fan-made game officially called Mega Man vs. Street Fighter that it captivated me a little bit more to play emulation. The reason why is because I bought my first USB controller, and I still have it. It's just like little GigaWare controller, and to be honest, this is still a really good controller. Still works on my computer, and I still use it. It's actually not bad. And playing it on the PC with a controller, I was like, you know what? I have a controller now to play this game. Why don't I go back and start playing some ROMs, some emulators? Because, retro gaming and YouTube was really big, and I was wanting to get more into the imports. I couldn't afford some of these games, so I started going back and playing those, and that was just where it all started. I still collected retro stuff. I still enjoyed original hardware, but I knew that if something was to happen, I had a backup plan, and I was completely okay with it. And now I exclusively play just about everything retro on my Raspberry Pi. I played on my PC. At one time I had a Ouya, played on that. Play on my phone. I mean, it's amazing that 17 years later after being in high school, wow, 17 years later, and watching the progression of technology and just the way I do things now, it blows my mind. It really blows my mind. But yeah, guys, that is my introduction to emulation. And I would love to hear some of your stories. Be sure to leave a comment below. If you want to make a response video, be sure to share that video as a comment so I can click on it and watch it. I'd love to hear some of your guys' stories about getting into emulation, and it's really interesting hearing everyone's different perspectives, rather it was financial reasons, rather it was curiosity, but either way, the most important thing is that we're all playing video games and we're all having a good time. And speaking of a good time, if you guys had a good time watching this video and you want to keep supporting this channel, be sure to hit the bell. The bell's going to be beside the subscription button, and this will notify you on all future videos coming out on this channel. Anyway guys, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.